All right, so let's go into assignments. Did it give you all an announcement saying that it's recording the meeting?
No, it's only on your end because you're the host.
Okay.
Yep, I still see the recording though on the top there.
The little red thing.
Yep.
Okay,
Oh.
perfect. So the assignment, the resume packet. So it is a total of 100 points. So those 100 points are the first 50 points. So the first 50 points are going to be a draft. Oh my gosh, why is it saying like that? Okay, so 50 points is going to be your draft. I'm going to give you feedback on your draft and tell you like what things you should change or things you can like move around or any feedback, basically feedback. Then the next 50 points will be the final draft where it will be the feedback I gave you and then you're gonna paint it around. And what I mean by draft, this includes your resume and cover letter. So resume and cover letter, so it's both. So 25 points for your first resume draft, 25 points for your cover letter. So Marco and Leslie just sent their first resume, so they already got 25 points each for their resume draft. And then I'm gonna look at it, read it, give them like pointers, feedback, anything like that. And then they're gonna take that feedback and then give me a final draft. Any questions about that? And I'll make this due. Let's make it due next Friday.
And where is it on Canvas?
Where is it on Canvas?
Yeah, because I don't see it. It's not on self-awareness or assessments, handouts, or anything like that.
If you go to assignments, and it should be the resume packet.
Ah, there we go.
Mm-hmm. And I believe in the modules, there should be, maybe I haven't published it in the modules yet, but there should be like little templates and tips. I usually bring I bring like a bunch of handouts to class, but obviously that's not happening. So they should all be here. So like the prompt, accomplishment statements, the template, action verbs, because resumes do have to be very action oriented. And then this one this is a separate assignment, but yeah, tips on there. So let's go into lecture. So this lecture is actually from the Career Center at UC Berkeley. I did intern at UC Berkeley for 1 year. I taught a career class similar to this one, but it was more for students who were about to graduate with their bachelor's degree. So it was a little more this class that we're taking right now together that I'm teaching you guys is more like finding yourself, like more like self-awareness on your personality and interest. The other one was more like, okay, we got to get you job ready now. So yeah, this is from the Career Center at UC Berkeley. And it is Resume 101, the basics to writing an effective resume.
Della, are you sharing your screen?
Oh, can you not see it?
Nope.
No.
Did you not see anything I was doing on?
No,
Oh
not.
my gosh, this whole time I thought, no wonder you were like, I don't see what you're doing this whole time. I thought I was sharing what I was doing on Canvas. I'm so sorry, you guys. I'm so sorry. Okay, let me go back to Canvas. So what I did on Canvas, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. So I was on assignments. Can you see the assignments?
Yeah, now we can see it. Thanks.
And then I clicked this one, the resume packet. And then I showed you here the 50 points for the draft and 50 points for the final draft. And I need to make it so that you can upload it. I don't think it has an option for you to upload right now. So let me just do that now. Online. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, file
Maybe
upload.
do the file uploads, yeah.
Don't restrict the.
Yeah,
oh.
don't.
Oh, I don't want PDFs though.
So you want Word documents?
Yeah. What's the other one? That's a Word document. There's another one.
I think those are the main ones.
Okay. And then I was showing you on when you go home to the modules, and you go to job search and communication. I was also like pointing this stuff out. So sorry for missing that. So yeah, it's all here. So everything we're gonna go over is all also here. Okay, can you see the slides now?
Yep.
Okay. And then when I was talking about Berkeley, I was like, because it's still, it has like Berkeley's like information there because I took this from them. Okay. So today we're going to talk about the purpose and the value of having a strong resume, how to begin, basic resume structure, sample resumes, and then any frequently asked questions and thoughts. So I just want to see like overall with everybody, like who already has a resume? Like put a little like thumbs up or a little clap something if you're not showing your camera. So it seems like a lot of you already have resumes. Nice, good, good. Yeah, usually like a lot of people begin their first resume like their senior year in high school. But if you don't have one, that's fine. That's totally fine. You will get one by the end of the semester. So your resume is to market yourself. It is a place for you to list everything you've done so that employers see what experience you have. You can use it for networking. So for example, if you go to like a career fair, you can bring resumes with you and distribute them that way. They help you with part-time and full-time employment. I know at the time back then, like resumes weren't really a thing. Like people would just apply with a little paper application. But now a lot of even like employment that doesn't require a bachelor's degree, a lot of times they ask for a resume. So they're very frequently used now. You can also use it for internships, career fairs, job applications, and graduate school. I also want to say that if you need like a letter of recommendation from someone, sharing your resume with them is also really helpful. So think about your resume. Like I said, a lot of you already have resumes that you're using. So think about how you feel. Take into account as we're going through this, just think about like what your resume already has and what you can use to either enhance it or change it, or I don't know, maybe your resume is already stellar and you don't need to do anything to it, and that's fine. So before writing your resume, so think of everything you've done. And a lot of people think that sometimes they haven't done any like real experience or work, but that's not true. Like some of you might be involved in your community through church or volunteering at your sibling school or taking care of your family, or maybe like in your family, you were the one who always had to take care of computer issues. Like your parents maybe didn't know how to use the computer and you were the one who was setting everything up. So that gives you like even tech experience. So anything like that you've done. I usually call it's like word vomit in a way where you're just like throwing it out there. So that's usually my approach with students who don't have a resume, is like just put everything, like just write it down. Then identify your objective. So what is your purpose of creating this resume? Are you creating just this resume just to have one, or is there like a specific intention? Are you going to apply to graduate school? Are you looking for an internship? Like what is it? General resumes, just having one in general, just like your general resume is good to have too. A lot of times, this is also referred to as the master resume, and the master resume is where it has everything you've done, and then you take stuff from your master resume and create a tailored one for what you are specifically applying to. Learn what skills and what the job objective requires. So if there's a particular position you're looking for, look at the job description and look at the terms they use in their job description. Make sure that you have what they are looking for. So for example, maybe you were a barista, but you're looking for an internship in healthcare. There's a lot of overlap in terms of skills that baristas and somebody in healthcare could have. So how can you match your barista skills to what they're looking for? Like for example, like talking to customers, maintaining, I don't know, like a clean area. I don't know, different things like that. So the resume structure. So here's a little example. Oops. There's an example right here. We're using Sophie Moore. So your name And some people usually put their middle name, sometimes they don't. If you like to go by your middle name and you have a first name, usually some people will initial their first name. Like let's say your first name is, I don't know, James, and your middle name is, I don't know, Bob or something, and you want to go by Bob, then you would put J.Bob and then your last name. And then your contact information, only the city and state. People used to put like a city, like everything like this, like 2290 Fremont Way. That's actually an outdated approach. Like try to not put your full address, even the zip code, especially now with internet, like people can look up where you live and it's kind of creepy. So just like, don't put the whole address. This is a no-no. Just put Fremont, California, or San Bruno, California, wherever, just the city and the state. Then your telephone number, make sure it's reliable and accurate. And then your email address, again, I don't have to say this, but I'm gonna say it anyways. Make sure your email address is professional. Make sure it's not like Sparkles02 or something like that. Just make sure it's very professional. Usually just your first initial and your last name. And then the position you're applying for. So usually, I know my personal approach is putting it right below like my name, like in this area right here, like after my contact information, but below like where my name is, and I bold it also. And I'll put the specific like position, like career counselor, and then usually job postings have a number for the job posting that you're applying for, and I'll put that number also. So that also makes your resume stand out and makes it very clear for what you're applying for. Any questions about the first part of the resume? Questions? Make sense? How about other people? Like, do you have another approach to how you put the part right there for the first area of your resume? I know I've worked with a lot of people who live in different parts of the world, and sometimes they'll put their picture, because that's common in other countries to put your picture on your resume. For most of the jobs in the US, like putting your picture is not really a practice that a lot of people do. So I would discourage you putting your picture unless you're applying for like a particular job that requires like, I don't know, looks or something.
Sales or something, maybe.
Yeah, like sales, or if you want to go into like modeling, or if it's like a social media job and like followers or something like that is important, like maybe you could put your picture. But yeah, it's like usually not a trend that many people do. Okay, so right after your name and your contact information and the job position, then you put your professional summary. And some people have it like straight up like that, like just professional summary. And this is where you are like, it has to sound like you're bragging. Like you have to show them like that you're confident, that you are like a little abrasive in a good way, and that they're gonna hire you because you are gonna like hit the ground running and you're gonna be good for their company. So almost make it sound like I am great because blah, blah, blah. And I tell students to put about 5 skills that they have. So if you're bilingual or trilingual or however many languages you speak, you want to highlight it already in your professional summary. If you have like so many years or so many hours doing something, you want to include that there also. If you're a team player, anything that matches what they're looking for and makes you sound like you're bragging, put it in your professional summary right away, because that's the first thing that employers are going to look for. And it's usually 3 to 4 sentences telling them what basically what you're going to offer their company. I could read you guys mine just so you can get an idea of what. This is the last resume I tailor my resumes a lot for what I'm applying to. But the last one I use, it says, a responsible counselor with over 5 years of counseling practice. Specialized skills include strong active listening, fluent bilingual communication in Spanish and English, and thorough knowledge of the student-centered approach. Organized team player looking to contribute to blah, blah, blah company as blah, blah, blah. And then you put like the company you're applying for. So I would put something like organized team player looking to contribute to Skyline College as a career counselor. Any questions about the professional summary? And it's just like a short little paragraph. Questions? No? Okay, makes sense. Pretty straightforward. A common trend is to put education right after the professional summary, but you can put, I mean, some people put it in different orders, but usually you put your education first because a lot of times the jobs that you might be applying to require some sort of degree. So you want to highlight that right away. So again, put the school and the university, so Skyline College, San Bruno, California. So a lot of you have, most of you have not graduated yet, so you would put, instead of putting like the actual graduation date, you would put expected first. So expected May 2022. And you would want to highlight awards and GPA in this area also if you want like any specific like scholarships. And the GPA, I usually tell students to include their GPA if it's above a 3.3. You can put your GPA if it's below a 3.3, but I don't know, it's I guess, again, this is another thing that is your taste and your style, but yeah, usually if it's above a 3.3. For a academic resume, again, if you're applying to graduate school or a scholarship or a specific program like that, you want to include relevant courses you took in this area. So for example, like this person has a bachelor's in mechanical engineering, and let's say they're applying for graduate school to get a PhD or master's or something, they would put the relevant courses, especially the prerequisites that that program is asking for. Any questions about the education part of the resume? No? Okay. I personally have my community college. I know not everybody puts their community college, but I do have my community college, my undergrad, where I got my bachelor's and my master's. I put both. And I know some schools have the name in it. Like for example, my community college, the name of my community college is Lake Tahoe, and it is located in Lake Tahoe. And it sounds very repetitive, but that's, you still have to put where it's located. Even if it has the name in it, you have to put both. Lake Tahoe Community College, located in Lake Tahoe, California. Right after your education, you can jump into either profession, and people like to separate their experience. You could either separate it by volunteer experience, professional experience, work experience, or you can just leave it as general experience. And it starts from most recent all the way to the oldest experience. I know a lot of you are very, very young, so this probably isn't relevant to you guys, but you don't want to go further than 10 years. Like 10 years is the max. You want to keep it to what you've done within the past, like, I would say 7-ish years. And this is just a general template. And again, this is where you put your action verbs. This is where you make it very action oriented, and you use like, using your tenses is also super important. And you want to make sure that the tenses match. So you're not going to be saying like for example, right here it says taught. You wouldn't say like, I don't know, like teach or something like that. Or if it doesn't match, like if it would say something like provide one-on-one tutoring to high school students. Let me see, I don't know how to, I'm not doing a good job explaining it. But you want the tenses to match. If you are speaking in a past tense, everything should be in a past tense. That is a very common, I'm bringing this up because it's a super common mistake. I've seen so many resumes, and it's such a common mistake where the tenses are all over the place, and you do not want to do that. Just try to avoid that. Just proofread, make sure. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I was just asking, what about current jobs? That's what I'm confused about, because if it's like too current, do I keep it past tense or do I keep it present tense for that one current job?
Yes. So if it's a job you're still doing right now, you would keep it present tense. So for example, mine, I have it present tense. So I have like coordinate and lead field trips for over 30 students to learn about different universities across California. Assess student learning outcomes. So present tense for a current job you're doing is, yeah, you would keep it that way. And right here in the date, instead of like, you would put the present because you're still in that current job. or if it's a temporary job or like a grant funded job that has an expiration date, you would put when it's gonna end. So like 6/2022 or something. And this is a style thing. You can write the dates however is appealing to you. For example, for me, I write out the whole month. So I'll put like September 2017 through June 2018. And again, it's even if it has the name in what you're doing, like if you are working and it has the name of the city, you still have to put where it's located again, even if it sounds repetitive. Now let's talk about action verbs. So
another thing I want to call out, Adela, is making
yes.
sure your periods are consistent too. Like make sure you have periods after every bullet point or all no periods. So that's like another small thing, like the present past tense thing.
Thank you. That is another common mistake. Like they'll end a few sentences with a period and others won't. And that could mean you won't get called in for an interview. So yeah, thank you for pointing that out. Very, very true. A lot of companies, especially like big tech companies or just big companies in general, sometimes they'll scan resumes because they just don't have the time to read everything. And it'll like pick up. So they have their job description again. And I know for my personal style, when I'm helping students, when I'm creating their resume, I put exactly like the terms that the job description asks, because when they scan it, they're going to be picking up those terms that they're looking for, that they put in their job description. So make sure you're using those verbs and those terms that they want. So for example, let's go back to healthcare. You want to work at Kaiser and they use the word clients. I'm just making this up. They use the word clients instead of patients, and you use patients in your resume, and then I use clients in my resume. I'm most likely going to get called into the interview versus you who didn't use the term they were looking for. So little things like that could make a huge difference.
They also now have softwares too, where they literally will put your resume through the software to see how many words match. So FYI for that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for pointing that out, because yeah, very true. I personally also use the thesaurus when I'm looking for verbs, but these are different like action verbs to use. Again, you want to make it sound, I usually like tell students to start with an action verb and try to not use the same one over and over. Like I remember I was looking at a resume once and the person kept saying coordinated, coordinated, coordinated. And I'm like, let's do something else besides coordinated. So yeah, make sure that, and here's coordinated right here under teaching. So look at all these other words the person could have used instead of coordinated like 50 times. Any questions about action verbs? Or anybody, any questions about like matching them through the, like how they do that or anything like that? And again, you find the words that they want on their job description. They tell you exactly on their job description what they want.
Also for the verbs, like you were saying, action verbs, I think when I used to be going through the process of going from my resume to my final resume, people would tell me, make sure you use very much action-oriented verbs because you don't want it to sound very passive. So things like, I drove this, I managed this, so that it's not like, oh, like this happened or something, you know, like you really led that and did something in your past jobs.
Yeah, any questions about that? Makes sense? Yeah. Remember, you have one page to capture that employer's attention, just one page. So you want to make sure that it is like this is why you want me. This is why I would be a good match.
Adela, do academic resumes also can only be one page or longer, like applying for grad schools?
That's usually 2 pages is okay.
Okay, cool.
For that, yeah. Yeah, and I know for programs for graduate school, like they do care a lot about experience. So yeah, if you make it 2 pages to incorporate your experience that's relevant to why you want to go into that program, that would be great, especially if it's like a competitive program. Yeah, that would be good.
Adela,
Mhm.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but for the resume packet,
Mhm.
can you correct me if I'm wrong, but like the first 50 points is like a rough draft, right?
Mhm.
And then the other 50 points is like the final resume?
Yeah, so the first 50 points, you're going to be submitting a rough draft to me, and then I'm going to give you feedback. And then the final draft is you implementing the feedback into that resume.
Okay, so that makes sense. So by Thursday, we have to send you the first part, right?
Did I put Thursday? I meant Friday. You have till Friday. I'll change the date, but yeah, but it's due next week.
Okay, that makes sense.
And a cover letter too. It's a resume and a cover letter.
Okay.
Yeah, which we're gonna go over cover letter on, what time is it? Yeah, we're gonna go over it Monday for sure.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Good question. Okay, so after experience, then you go into additional skills and abilities. So this one you can make it up to you what you want to title it. But I'm sorry, I need to go back a little bit, back to the experience. I forgot to mention that you do not use the words I or we. So never ever make say I led or I developed lesson plans and I made sure students were try to avoid, or not try, but actually avoid the words I and we when you are, for example, this one, participated in year-round competitive intercollegiate rowing club practicing 20 hours per week. So this student never said I did or we competed. It was just does that make sense? I don't know. But yeah, try to avoid the words I and we. And also make sure it's something measurable. So for example, instead of saying see how this person did 20 hours per week, try to include numbers in there. For example, me, if I'm teaching a class, I'll say how many students were in my class, or how what was the percentages of students that met the student learning outcomes, 90% of students match the student learning outcomes or something like that. Try to use numbers and something that is measurable. Does that make sense? And I could help you figure that out too, how to incorporate that into your resume.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, employers do really like the metrics. Like in my resume, if you look at it, I have dollar values, or when I did email marketing, open rates, click rates, amount of revenue generated. That's really impressive to people, or how much money you saved the company, or how much time you saved.
Yes, exact saving time, saving money, yeah, those things are huge. Let me see. Yeah, and I like how for your first part, you just left it as summary, just summary. That's awesome. And then you didn't put your location, which is fine. And that in the Bay Area, that works totally fine because the Bay Area, people are just hopping around everywhere and commuting. That's a normal part in our culture, in the Bay Area culture. So that's, yeah, if you don't put your city and your state, that's fine.
Yeah, the other thing is, if you look at my LinkedIn, the handle, it's Leslie Liu SF. You can change your handle on LinkedIn so that's not random looking. So I made it Leslie Liu SF, and that kind of tells them that I'm in SF area.
Ooh. I like that. I like that. Yeah. That's a really good touch. So yeah, as Leslie mentioned, you can make your LinkedIn your own little link. And I like how you included San Francisco. That's a good idea. I just have my name. A lot of people usually just have their name, but including that would be really good, especially if you're in the Bay Area.
Common. So
What
I
happened?
My name is really common, so I couldn't get that handle like Leslie Liu. Your name is probably less common, but yeah, for those of you who have common names, you can add that.
Mm-hmm. And then the summary. I know for me, so do you guys see how Leslie's like how the font is very like consistent? One way to differentiate the font is to italicize it. That's the personal approach I also use on my resumes. If I want something to stand out or to look a little different, I italicize it. Yeah, and yeah, your skills should be included with your summary or like right below it. That's awesome. Knowledge of different like programs. And then yeah, just by like quickly skimming Leslie's resume, I could see numbers already like jumping out. And that's another thing I forgot to mention, that after you include like a specific job or company you worked at, you want to have about like 2 to 5 bullets. Like 5 is max. Like try to keep it like less than 5 bullets per place you've been at. Any questions about that? Okay. So back to this. So yeah, and where you put your skills on your resume, that is again your personal taste. I know for me, I have my skills incorporated into my professional summary, so they're like combined together. And then on my resume, I don't have like another separate area for skills, but I know a lot of people, again, depending on what industry you're going to, that can make a huge difference. And this person was on the rowing team, and they also played the saxophone on the jazz band. And this could be so many different things that you could do.
I sometimes get I guess I don't know if I should include the fun things that make me who I am, you know, because it's like totally unrelated. Like, oh, I dance or whatever, you know, this kind of the activities. What do you think about that, Adela?
So that's a good question. It really, honestly, as I mentioned earlier, it's a taste thing. I know for some people, I remember when I was in my sorority, like a tip they would tell us is like, oh, like you might not want to include your sorority on your resume. But one of my sisters, she put the sorority on her resume, and she brought it up at she was interviewing for a law firm, and she brought it up during her interview. And the lawyer who was interviewing her was in our brother fraternity. So he was, which when you go to college, like brothers and sister fraternities are kind of like, you do a lot of stuff together. So it's like a, close connection. And they were like, what? No way. And like, they were excited, and he gave her the job. And I feel like that gave her an extra edge. So you might be like Leslie, let's say Leslie puts dancing, like dancing is her passion, and she puts it in her resume, and she's applying for a totally non-dance related job. And the person who interviews her was probably a dancer too. And they could connect with that. They could connect about that. And having a connection with an interviewer like that, like a conversation, like makes you just like stand out. So, and we're going to go over that when we do interviews, but that could really, really help. Yeah, so that would be a personal style thing, if you would like to include it. I'm trying to look at my resume and see if I have anything like that. I have it like right next to me.
I was going to say that also anyone in the class, you're welcome to use my resume as a template. I don't mind.
Oh, thank you. That's so nice.
As with mine.
Thank you, guys.
But Google Docs also has that same template. So.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's look at this completed resume. So again, avoid the address. Don't put your city, because you don't want people creepy. You never know who can stalk you. You never know. So just don't put your address. Education, experience, and then activities. And again, your activities, skills, awards, etc. Mine, it's called, I have volunteer experience. So I have my experience, professional experience, and then volunteer experience. And my volunteer, I like to volunteer in like random places. Like I like to do like whatever sounds fun to me. So it does have like some random like volunteer places I've done, and that's okay. It's still experience. And again, when you put like for example, let's say Leslie has dancing. There's so many skills you get from dancing that could apply to pretty much any industry. So yeah, this is a good little draft of a resume. Sophie Moore, who is getting a bachelor's in mechanical engineering, has worked as an assistant, and is a rower who plays the saxophone. Nice. So frequently asked questions. Do you need to list an objective? So listing actually before we go into frequently asked questions, I want to hear what other questions you all have.
Is it really necessary to describe what you did for your activities?
So if you just list your activities, I would probably, even if you just put like one little bullet, 1 or 2 bullets, I think it would be good to describe it. And if you're like, well, I don't know what bullets to put, I don't know what the heck to include in there. Again, take what the job description has. So look up a job description and see what it's listing, what it's asking for, and see how whatever you did in that volunteer experience relates to that, if that makes sense.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I just kept it one line. I just put interest and then all the other things because I just had a lot of other things that I wanted to highlight.
Mm-hmm. There's another thing, like for example, there's a lot of people who love conferences, like they just live for conferences. And conferences are usually like 1 day to 3 days long, like they're really short things. So sometimes they'll just have a list of all the conferences they've attended. And they don't describe like what the conference was about. They just have it and they're good to go. Other questions?
Actually, I have another question.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at my resume, I realized that I have kind of a lack of space to put like a lot of those bullets and stuff. So how would you go about kind of reducing that in newspaper terms, white space, and kind of filling that, and not really, and kind of not being able to run out of space? Because I don't know if you see on my resume, I kind of filled everything, and if I do put anything else, it's going to automatically go to the second page.
Let's see. So you're asking about all this like blank space?
Yeah. And I don't know how to move everything up without screwing it up, if you will.
I think this is like the template. It's like a template thing.
Okay.
And sometimes it's okay if resumes, so sometimes you have so much experience and that's good. Put every single experience you have, but then let's say you start looking for I don't know, an internship with the radio or something, and you would want to like tailor it, make a new resume and copy and paste relevant work experience and skills and stuff for that specific internship. Like for example, I have a resume that is 5 pages long. It's 5 pages long. I never use that resume. That resume just has everything I've done. So when I'm applying to a job, I just like pick and choose different things from my 5-page resume and then make a 1-page tailored resume for that specific position I'm applying for.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Also change the font size. You don't want it to be less than like 11-point font, but you can change up and then I think it is the template, like you see up there below your name, there's so much space there. And then also in between like experience and the chocolate company, like there's just a lot of space that you could fill. And then also, even if you go down to education, like, I don't really know if your high school is really that important. Like, I mean, if you're in college, it's probably a no-brainer. For me, when I was, you know, applying for internships and such, I did include my high school, but that's because I had like a 3.975 GPA, so I included that. So I would say, like, when I look at this, like, be really intentional about what you're including here and what you're trying to say, because if there's something there that isn't adding value to your resume, there's not much room. And then also your another trick that I do too is when I'm creating like sections, like for example, that line, I am an amateur reporter at the top, that, like, there's Skyline College underneath, but if I'm trying to condense it, I'll like take out words to make it into 3 lines instead of 4. And you probably won't take away too much if you're like condensed, because there's that whole line underneath there that's taking up room. And then also on your right side, the corner, there's like a whole bunch of space. The right bottom corner, there's a whole bunch of space there that can be used, but I think it is the template thing. I myself struggle with, should I have 2 columns or just 1? But I think, yeah, I think there's ways that you can get more on it. And then also bullet points help too, because you can say something really consistent where your descriptions there, like your work experience, are sentences. And, you know, instead of like a paragraph, you could do like 2 or 3 like short, concise bullet points that are actually easier to read when like even in there, sorry, I'm like totally like just criticizing your resume, but things like I did various jobs cleaning, like you could be like created like you just use more action oriented verbs that are like I managed the facilities and made like I don't know, just like things that would be like more concise and very like also worked, you know, worked is kind of like everyone kind of works, but you could be like yeah, you can, there's ways to make it more like I drove this, I led this, I initiated this, or like this is a project I managed or something.
All right. By the way, don't feel bad that you're basically picking my resume apart. This is constructive criticism, so that's what this is all for. So don't worry.
Okay.
I hope nobody feels bad, because what Leslie did is what I'm going to do to everybody.
Yeah, because honestly, that I've gone through this like interviewing and like redoing resumes so many times. Like I mentioned in class, I did like my most recent job was like email marketing, but I've also done like data analytics and operations and finance. And then now I'm transitioning to psychology. So I've had to like tailor my resume in a lot of different ways. And then, you know, I've applied for a lot of different jobs, and every resume that you send out should be specific to the job and the company. You know, like what I do when I'm applying for jobs is I check the job description and I directly match, like I will change my summary up or like my skills that I mentioned and the order of things, as well as like certain talking points or like certain experience. So I will really tailor the resume to the job posting and the company. And then also, like, obviously Adele will probably go over this, but some companies require cover letters. And so there's a lot that goes into it, but yeah, it's a learning process. And yeah, I've had a lot of mentors and people tear up my resume, but that's kind of how you get to like a good resume.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. That was awesome. Okay. Can you guys see the slides?
No.
Okay. Yeah. And we're all like, you know, the resumes are just, some of you, it's your first time and we're just growing from it. We're learning. We're learning. It's all coming from a place of care. Okay, so do you need to list an objective? That is, I wouldn't say like objective, that is a very outdated term also. I would avoid the word objective. I would say like summary, professional summary, executive summary, something like that. And your objective should be included in your resume. So for example, let's see. I know like for me, as I mentioned earlier, like my objective was at the very last sentence in my paragraph, in my summary. So that could just be, you could incorporate it somewhere there. Or again, that job, as I mentioned earlier, the job title, if you put that right below your name or somewhere on your resume, that is already the objective of what you're applying for.
Hey, Adela, sorry, I have a question I just realized. I've heard some people mention like you can put your last name and your initial on your resume so that it creates less of a bias in terms of like hiring biases for like male or females or like, that kind of thing. What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, that is another thing. As I mentioned earlier, like if you don't like to go by your first name and you just want to put the first initial, that's fine. So if you want to like just do your first initial, like if I just did A Kimball, that's fine.
Is it better though? Like, do you think that the chances are better, or do you think it doesn't really matter?
I personally, if the chances are better, that's a
Because
good question.
people will have biases towards like, oh, well, like, I mean, I just feel like the reality of the situation are like, yeah, some people have their preferences and
Mm-hmm.
look at your name and, think, oh, like what ethnicity is this person, or is this person male or female? Yeah.
That is a reality. That is true, and everybody knows. Even like in the world of work, like everybody knows that men have a preference, pretty much in all the jobs.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, so that is a reality, and that is something that unfortunately happens. Um, but and they've done. Everybody can Google this. Like they've done studies where people like change a name on even though the resume will be exactly the same, they'll change a name on a resume, and the person who has like I don't know, a male sounding name is going to get called in for the job versus somebody with a female name, or same with ethnicity. So that is a tough call, especially if you're not putting your full, like your actual name. That might make it a little more, I don't know if it'll hurt or help.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. I guess like maybe if I were to apply to a job and I don't know. It's also hard because certain companies are probably valuing diversity. So you don't know who exactly is reading it.
That's tough. That is
Like
tough.
you can say just like LL, for example, or something, probably, but it's also weird.
That is something to look into. I'm gonna look into that. That's interesting. I'm gonna look into that this weekend, and we'll revisit it on Monday. But that's a good thing to consider. Yeah. And then a reference list. So you kind of like this little picture says resume, not an autobiography. You kind of don't want to give them too much. I personally advise to not give a reference list, especially if you're out at a career fair handing out resumes. I wouldn't do it. I would usually in the application, it asks for a reference list, or the employer will tell you themselves on the little job description, like provide 3 references or something. I have applied for jobs where I had to give them a sheet with my references, and I just created a little table and put them there. But I would say for the most part, just like don't overbear, or don't give them more information like than you need to give them. How long should your resume be? 2 pages max. Go, Marco, were you going to say something? Sorry.
I can give. I'll give. I wanted to give some tips about job fairs and resumes. So
Mhm.
just continue on. right now, please.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Well, I had an opportunity because I'm like a huge plane fan and stuff. So I was able to go to SFO, and we're supposed to have a job fair. So I had like a whole folder of resumes. So my advice to y'all is just have a good resume and just print like five or six resumes because you don't know what you're gonna find.
Or you can even, I mean, I've printed out 20 before if there's a lot of companies.
Yeah. Basically, just have a whole folder, and be prepared.
And for a career fair in particular, you probably want to keep it to 1 page.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for that. That's very, very true. And yeah, that kind of goes with the next thing. If it's a career fair, keep it to 1 page. But if it's like a job or grad school or something else, I think 2 pages is appropriate for sure. What if I have a lot of experiences? Should I include them all? Again, no, tailor it to that particular position. Tailor it. So make sure that it is, that it's experience that's relevant to what you're applying to. Oh my gosh, I can't get the chat box to come out. Okay. There we go. Oh, Alt-H. Oh my gosh, sorry you guys, I'm having issues opening the chat box. I saw there was a message.
Kristen said that's what I did when I lived in Modesto. Was so hard to get a job out there for some reason.
In Modesto. Yeah, that is, let's see. That's what I did when I lived in, so yeah. So job fairs, is that like you went to job fairs or kept it to 2 pages? Oops. Okay, let's see. So what if you don't have much work experience? So again, that's something that we can work on together. I'm pretty good at helping people dig for experience. Like somebody will come in and say like, I have no experience at all. I've never done anything. And they end up leaving my office with like a full 1-page resume or 2 pages with experience they thought that they just like didn't know how they could tailor it into experience. So I'm sure you do. I'm sure all of you have experience. And then should you include experiences from high school? You can, especially for a lot of you who just graduated from high school, you totally can. I know when I was in community college, as you all know, I was very involved in the Forest Service, and I included all my Forest Service high school experience in my community college resume. Now that I graduated from college like a while ago, now I don't have any experience from college. All the experience I have on my resume is post-college work. So, but a lot of you, it's okay if you include high school stuff. And some of you, you probably want to start looking into what can you do right now in community college, which I hope it's a theme all of you have picked up from me, is that get involved, dabble in different things, like go out and get an internship now, even if it's just 1 day a week, join a club, like start working on that experience right now. That will not only introduce you to different like paths that you can go into, but just, will help you will make you a more experienced, well-rounded person. So resume no-nos are lies, references, and personal information. Again, no references, discourage that. And personal info, don't put your address. Write your own resume. It should reflect your personality. So yeah, it should be you, like truly authentically you, but getting help or having other people look at it is fine. Make sure you proofread at all times. Like avoid, again, like little mistakes, like just like a period or a wrong tensed word will hurt you. And your resume is never a finished product. It's always growing. It's always being tweaked. You should always tailor it. Always tailor it. And yeah, the Career Center, we're always there to help. We're here to support you. So yeah, next Monday, we're gonna go over career cover letters. Any last questions about resumes or the assignment on resumes? If you turn it in before Thursday or before Friday, that is totally fine. I welcome that because I need to, it would be nice for me to start grading them. Give me something to do, please. I'm just kidding. No, but yeah, definitely can start.
Stella,